Let's do it. Alrighty, here we go. My name is Marty Fox from White Fox. Now, here's the deal.
So this is With the Fox, WTF. I thought I'd start actually because we haven't really reflected upon any of the episodes we've done. Before we get to our guest today, we're almost we're over a dozen episodes of this. You enjoy it? What's the feedback been so far on this?
Look, feedback's been good. A lot of messages from people saying, I didn't know this, and that was interesting, and I took a lesson out of what this person said. So again, it's positive. I mean, yes, it's time consuming to do a podcast, and I saw a pretty crazy stat. It was like, above 90% of podcasts don't actually make it past episode 8.
Yep.
So the fact that we're at episode 12 is pretty cool. I'm enjoying sitting down and connecting, even this episode today with Aidan Hathaway, to be able to sit down and talk about what we've done and what he's doing and just some good memories of past. Like, what a great excuse to have a podcast and reconnect and just have a good yak.
I was going to say, it's just yakking, isn't it?
It's just yakking.
Well, this is With the Fox. I'm sure Taff. It's Marty Fox, of course. And it's a chance, as you said, to sometimes dive into your mind and sometimes dive into the minds of our guests who are either part of our lives, your lives, or just interesting for us and from a business and real estate and world perspective. This man is, I want to say, in many senses, so influential in your life, but also in the life of White Fox as a brand, what it's done, what it's been able to do from its genesis. And, I don't want to overstate that fact, but in all senses, I think you would openly say without this guy, it would be a very different journey for this business so far. Is that fair to say?
Totally different journey. And it probably just would have been far less enjoyable.
I was going to say a lot less fun.
It was very fun. We're
going to dive into that. You'll see why.
Well, we had dinner the other night with our wives and Aidan. Oh no, fiance. And Aidan's fiance Ali was like, "Geez, it's crazy! Like, you guys literally finish each other's sentences."
Yeah.
It's just that we've got this ability to just understand what each other are trying to convey, and that was the basis of White Fox. I had an idea of how I wanted the brand to communicate, but I wasn't able to actually put it into words.
Right.
And whatever I was putting down, Aidan was able to pick up and run with it, and that was in the creation of that distinct tone of voice that set us apart from the beginning. The deal, obvious seals the deal. The brand's pillars of being bold, polished, and matter of fact. All of that was coined in partnership with Aidan, sitting at where were we? We're at Top Paddock.
Yeah.
In Richmond.
Every day.
Well, hang on a second. Let's introduce him properly. So for those who don't know, Aidan Hathaway, firstly, great to have you here with us. This has been a long time coming. You're probably one of the first episodes we planned because of what your influence is on this brand. But it's great to have you. Of course, originally Willow and Blake, then WHITEFOX Marketing, now your own thing, FOXHAT. So we're going to go through that whole process. Mate, great to be with you.
Yeah, mate, great to be here. Thanks for having me. It's always good to chat with you and sit down and reflect on everything. So
Marty's already sort of like tiptoed into the areas we want to get to, but I think he's just gone slightly ahead of where I think we should start, which is for you personally.
Start of the first meeting.
Yeah. No, but I mean, in actual fact, like, give us a little insight into your background, like how you got into the creative world that you are in. What was it for you?
Well, I didn't know I wanted to go into that, and I think growing up, I didn't really know much about creative. I went to a school which was very much about becoming a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it may be, or a footy player. But didn't really know that. So I didn't know what I wanted to do growing up. And I think that was one of the great things in terms of why I'm so curious and why I am the way I am. So I left school and I moved to Byron Bay and then did a stint there, and then I moved to Canada and snowboarded there for a long time to find myself. And then I went into university and I wanted to be a naval architect. So I did naval architecture at university, or I started that at least. And then...
A naval architect? Sorry, is this designing boats?
Designing boats, yeah. So 2 years of engineering and then 2 years of naval architecture.
Wow.
So that's what I thought I wanted to be, and I started doing that.
And then tell me about you captaining a boat for a period of time.
I worked on a booze cruise in Portugal for a while in European summer, which that's naval. That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, but what happened? The captain left.
No, I was just running I wasn't driving the boat, but I was driving the party.
Gotcha.
But that's a that story is in the
Yeah,
past.
park that one.
But
Marty's trying to get it out of you.
but that was
I really want to get it out of here.
but that was
What did you do on the boat?
What's that?
What did you do on the boat?
I just drank a lot of alcohol.
Portuguese.
Yeah, sangria out of a beer bong. But no, I did traveled a lot and then wanted to do that, and then I got into that, and then I was very entrepreneurial growing up, and even when I was at Portsea Surf Club, like I used to get hats made and sell them to all the team who were down there and things like that. So I always kind of had that knack, and I in 2010 I went to the Football World Cup in South Africa. And I saw
What a vuvuzela?
Yeah, my ears are still ringing. But saw a product over there, and then I brought that across, and I started my own sort of little businesses and things like that. And then inherently, I had to write and do the creative and things like that.
What was the product?
They were these little socks that went over the car mirrors, because in South Africa there was not much public transport or between where the games were, so everyone had car rental and they were driving from stadium to stadium, and everyone put what country they were from on the cars. So we had the Australian little socks.
So effectively,
flags.
they were covering the car side mirrors.
Yeah.
So that you couldn't actually use the side mirrors.
No. The mirror bit was
visible.
The front bit. So when you were driving past other people, you could see.
give them a toot.
Exactly. You knew who you
Friend
were.
or foe.
Who you were coming across. So
And who to crash into. if you wanted to.
Correct. So I was like, oh shit, this would be great in Australia, and so I started investigating into that. Sourcing product, manufacturing, things like that, trying to sell it into the AFL, into other sporting organisations, things like that. So I started sort of that journey of, how to do this thing, and running a business. I wouldn't call it that, but it was sort of like that. But that, and then learn a lot. Started another product after that, which was a laundry-based product, and then started writing for that and working with graphic designers and doing a lot of copy and starting to get tone of voice and things like that happening. And that's when I sort of started to feel like I'm actually not bad at this, and there could be something more here. And then after a while, people would come and be like, hey, can you write something? This was like this is 2010 to 2013.
Yeah.
Social media was just sort of starting to take off. And people would come to me and be like, hey, my friend's got a business. Can you write their social captions for them? Or can you help them with some content and things like that? And I was like, oh, well, if you want me to, I will. So that's how it started. My first ever paid job was for a toasted sandwich food truck. And I think it was getting like...
Not Toast Face Griller.
No, Toaster. I'll give him a shout out.
Oh, Toaster.
Toaster was my first ever
Yeah.
paid client, which was probably 2013 maybe. I can't remember.
Yep.
And I was writing copy for them. I was helping them with like writing fun copy on their menu, doing their social content for them, ripping around in the food truck, making toasties, like just having fun. And that's what it was. It's probably like, when you look back on it, it's like it's kind of like when professional athletes, before they turned pro, and they're like, it was when it was like pure, it was organic, like the most fun before you actually
Took it seriously.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So it was, and that's how it started. And then from there, it was developing my craft, staying consistent, and then seeing what the avenues were to actually forming a career, because I had no idea. Still mid-20s, early 20s, and I was like,
This can't be real. This can't be a real job.
Exactly right. I was like, wait, you can get paid for this? Like, I would have done it for free.
Yeah.
I did do it for a lot of toasted sandwiches, as you can tell. But it's that's how that sort of was the origins of like.
So when did you join Willow and Blake? Because they were a real leader of the pack within the industry.
I mean, they were the best, without a doubt, the best copywriting agency in Australia. I'm comfortable in saying that. And that was, I was already had a relationship with Erica. I've known Jess for years before that as well.
And that's how we connected, because one of the owners of the company was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So then that's how I sort of got introduced.
Because at this
brand.
point, just to cut in, at this point, you're starting to plan White Fox. You're at
I
Wilson.
was working at Wilson. I was ready to start my own. And before pulling the pin, I wanted to just make sure that I had a vision.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just resign and then
hope for the best.
Yeah. So it was about reaching out to who I really needed, and I was following Erica. I knew that she had a brilliant copywriting business, and I just set up a meeting. And I remember at the time, I think I brought someone to that meeting. It was It was somebody that was in town.
It was a Scottish guy, and he'd flown in from Europe.
Yeah, from Europe, and he came to the meeting. He's unfortunately passed away now.
Oh.
Yeah, and yeah, he literally came to that first meeting.
Yeah.
When I pitched the
Correct.
idea of White Fox.
And I remember that meeting vividly because it was the business had not gone into that sort of field before.
No.
I've done a couple of property development, like residential development projects, maybe one or two that I'd seen since I'd been there. I'd only been there for maybe 6 months before I met Marty, maybe even earlier. So it was very different because we were massive in retail, e-commerce, social media, and businesses sort of using social media for that reason was
You haven't done any professional services at that point in time, I don't think.
No.
And certainly not real estate.
No, certainly not real estate. It was a lot more, everyone wanting to start a brand, an Instagram brand. We were working with a lot of those that off the success of the girls' company, Frank Body.
Yeah.
Nothing like this before. And that's why it was sort of like a bit of a, who is this guy? And,
Do you remember
what's
me
the
giving
plan?
the pitch?
I remember the pitch. I'm not sure if I remember the pitch. I definitely remember after the pitch because I had drunk the Kool-Aid. I was like, this is the passion that you had for it, the vision that you already had. I was like, because it was still up in the air whether we were going to take that job on.
Yes.
Because it was so foreign to probably things that we'd been working on. And I remember just going, I've got to work on this. Like, it's going to be, if Marty does what he says he's going to do, it's going to be amazing. And I knew that from the very, very first moment.
It's
And the
funny,
girls didn't.
but it's funny you say that because that's exactly how I described my meeting with him. Because when I first met him, I didn't know anything about it either. And he pitched effectively the business, even though it was already about to happen. And I said to people, yeah, but I felt like if this guy is going to do half of what he says, it's going to be impressive.
Yeah.
So you would have had that in a professional
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely.
But then, of course, they weren't necessarily sure, were they?
Yeah, not necessarily sure on there's in that field, a lot of people say things, and then when it gets to actually, and this is part of the creative process across a lot of brands
Sure.
and businesses, the actual execution on the idea and whether when we go away and start working on it and then we come back with the idea, whether they're actually going to have
to it.
Exactly right. Whether they're
And this
actually
was a
going to
big
do
thing
it.
that we found when we had our marketing agency. We would come up with an idea and a plan and a tone of voice, but the owners wouldn't have the guts to actually see it through and do it to a T. Everything that was put in front of me, I had the balls to just go away and do it.
So can you remember what you went in? Just give the listeners a little insight into that first meeting. You're going to a creative agency.
I remember we're in the creative agency. We went up 3 flights of stairs. We're in this funny little boardroom. There was probably 6 of us. And I was pitching what all the big brands were doing. They were all suited and booted. They were all auction heavy. They were all heavy in print media. They were just very lackluster on social media. Most of them didn't even have social media.
Not
Very traditional, very traditional. kind of.
All their photography was the same. No one was super architectural. Certainly no one was any video content. I just couldn't believe as I was trying to say that.
You're back in the moment, aren't you? You're back in the moment.
And it was just like opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And I gave the pitch and I thought, as I was pitching it, like how they couldn't just get excited. And the reality was they really weren't that excited, but he got excited. And then I remember Aidan saying, do you mind if I work on this brand if you don't want to work on it? And he could do it in his own personal time. And that's what actually ended up eventuating. But social media back then, it was so amazing because what would happen, the post would be written and designed and we'd dwell on it for hours and hours. And now I think about how much we're posting on a daily basis. It's like the quality of the posting, it's just not what it was when we started.
No.
In terms of not that our quality's dropped, it's just the volume of posting across the industry.
Think about how many people have Instagram now. So you've got so many more accounts, the way the algorithm works. So you're seeing different things. Back then, it was like if you posted, it was probably going to be seen. So make sure
we had posts that revolutionised an industry. I had somebody in Adelaide last week say to me, I remember when you posted new deal, new digits. And that was the announcement. That was the post of I was doing something new.
Yeah.
And like those moments are burnt in real estate agents' minds that have been following the brand. There's moments. I had one guy messaged me about the video of driving in the little green MG.
Yes.
And how it just piqued his interest into the brand. I'm thinking, fuck, you know, the reason to buy that car, to launch a brand with a particular classic car, actually did its job. It burnt in this guy's mind. Another person in Adelaide. So, you know, there was so much strategy behind the social media. It wasn't just social media for the sake of being it. It was a way to give the brand a voice because no one was willing to listen.
Yeah. And I think in those first meetings as well, one thing that sticks out with me is that you would go through the competitors' collateral or what they were doing, and it was, you always like, they're doing colour, we'll do black and white. They're doing A4 brochures, we'll do DL brochures. They're doing this, we'll do that. And that sort of sit down and sort of establish all those opportunities. I mean, we go on ad nauseum when we're talking with our clients about what are the opportunities, like, what are you wanting to do? Where are the opportunities for you to be different and do something different? And that's always really burnt into my mind of like, just the vision of, you know, if they're doing this, we'll do this. And I think that really set the benchmark across, you know, the tone of voice development, the original content strategy, all the collateral design and things like that, and the evolving nature of those pieces throughout the business. It's always been
half the battle was already done because the client wanted that.
Correct.
Versus you having to say, probably should look at what others are doing and don't do that.
Yeah.
So take us back to the start. So you've taken on this client in your own time.
Yeah.
He's passionate. He's a visionary.
Yeah.
What was your mind for? Where did you go?
Well, we did the tone of voice at Willow and Blake. So we did that. Erica and I worked on that. Just the two of us pretty much worked on that.
Describe tone of voice to people who don't know what that means.
So tone of voice, I mean, it's thrown out there a lot. I mean, for me, when it comes to tone of voice, and you know, creative is subjective and people see it differently, but tone of voice is, for me, is just establishing brand personality, tonality, and then the creative concept, or you know, the pieces that the brand can really hold on to create consistency through, you know, how it communicates.
It's how we
And how I used to pitch it was that the tone of voice is...
I still say this to clients as well, by the way.
and this was so fun over the years. Design is how you look, and tone of voice is how you sound.
Yeah.
So that's
it was in the meeting. I'd be going on a spiel, like,
Yeah.
you know, selling for like minutes, going, and it's this and it's that and it's that, and then Marty would come in at the end and go, basically, tone of voice is how you sound, and content strategy is how you look. And I'd be like, that's pretty much it. Okay, that's what I mean, there's so much fluff in this industry of trying to explain stuff, but it's like...
But I think that's why, you know, when we had our agency, it was successful because you had this unbelievable creative, but then sales is my thing.
Yeah. And I think that was sort of that. I mean, I know we're jumping ahead again, but that was that 1-2 punch. Some of those meetings with potential clients were some of the funniest and fun times I've ever had in this industry, and it would be the, you know, good cop, bad cop. Marty was sitting there going, "Yeah, we can do it for this much," and I'd be going, "Oh, Jesus!" Exactly. Or you know, and you know, I'd be waffling on, and Marty would be very succinct and direct, and you know, they would appreciate that, and it was a really great combination in terms of, you know, doing that. And then when it came to the presentations as well, when we would, you know, I loved it when we were in presentations together and presenting tone of voice and things like that. And I'd be talking for an hour and Marty'd be coming and going,
I'd be like the hype man. And you know, he'd always give 3 creative directions. And I'd say, that one's my favourite. He'd be like, Marty, you can't influence the client on which one you like the most. And I'd say, I know that, but I can't help myself. And the clients would get G'd up.
Yeah,
and
it was pretty magic.
Instead of selling a house, you're selling a tone of voice, and a different, and this is the thing. So many businesses that you might see out in the field, they've had multiple opportunities to be something different. And having that background knowledge of seeing what they could have been was extremely fun to be a part of.
So let's go to that. So tone of voice, you've got Marty's pitched White Fox. I know you've got a very defined vision on that.
Yep.
But at this point, you also want to put your stamp on, or at least come with some ideas.
Exactly. I mean, when it comes to developing a tone of voice, I mean, there's a lot of workshops and kickoffs. There's a lot of questions that you want to get from the client. You know, it's our job. I always say it's our job to articulate in a really, you know, succinct way or a distinct way, whatever it may be, from what their vision is. So, you know, it's a really big collaboration in terms of that. So, getting an understanding.
If it wasn't the deal, what were some of the other options?
Yeah,
do you remember?
I can't remember. I'm pretty sure we did 5 for you.
Yeah, there was 5
I
options.
think we did 5, which was, you know, some people will go, that's too much because you are bringing too many ideas into the forefront.
Could we get access to those files from Willow and Blake of what those 5 were?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I can't. They probably weren't that good. So, do we want to see them? But, but I mean, I know that for a fact that when you, and this is you to a T as well. When you saw the deal, it was like game over. That was like, I don't even know if you probably didn't listen to the rest of the presentation. You were probably just so zoned in going, you know what, that's exactly it. But
one thing about him that is good is he makes a decision very quickly.
Absolutely.
And that's, I know that with things like, yeah, that's good. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's, you know, we'll get onto that, but I think that's, that works so well in terms of being able to deliver the work we're doing and creating it as quickly as we do is because, you know, you're very, you know, it's yes or no. And, you know, and moving forward quickly is really good. But tone of voice, I mean, you know, there's a strategy section to it where we look at the, you know, the audience and not just who they are, but why they make certain decisions and understanding their psychography. I think that's really important. You know, understanding your audience is the biggest thing when it comes to all this work we do. Audience, competitors, the brand values, the key selling propositions of the business, and then developing the personality. That's the strategy section, and then we move into the creative.
And my big thing was I want to keep it very clear, not fluffy, and easy to explain to someone.
Yeah.
So it got down to the point where the brand's pillars weren't commitment, integrity, honesty, all that shit. Yeah. It was bold, polished, matter of fact.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do something, it has to be bold. It has to be able to stand out. It's going to be polished. It has to be finesse. It has to present really well to the market. And matter of fact, meaning that it can't be complicated. It has to be really easy to understand. To the point, internally and externally.
I remember, sorry, go on.
Those 3 pillars, they undermine everything that we do. And it's not real estate. That's just a mindset. So White Fox is a mindset of what we want to produce internally and externally.
I remember when we were doing when we sell the idea in those presentations, we did a whole bunch of application examples. So you can sort of start to see how
where it looks and feels.
Exactly, how it can look across all different, whether it be, you know, that first bit of web hero when you land on the page, or what could be on a business card, or what could be on a brochure. And I remember the board, it was just obvious for sale. Like it was like, that was the matter of factness coming through of, you know, we don't need, you know, we looked at all the other competitors, it was, you know, so adjective heavy copy and like, you know, so much fluff in the, exactly, like so much fluff. And I think, you know, that sort of is ingrained in that industry of like you're overselling almost in that, in the copy.
Have a look at what's happened since. The point is all of those traditional agencies, and we can sit here and say we think we've influenced them, which we have, but like they've all changed since.
Yeah,
and they've all become a lot less
company.
fluffy.
We were the first company to not only do the full narrated videos, but we're the first company to can any copy
on the board.
You now look at, say, the 2 biggest independent brands in Melbourne now that are 60 plus years of age. You look at their boards right now, there is no copy on their boards. And we did that 7 years ago. Yeah. Their rebrands have just come out in the last 12 months, and now there's no copy. We've always been ahead of the game. And we've always had to push because we're setting that path for these other agencies to follow suit when they're ready to do so.
For sure.
So, okay, so we've just established a tone of voice, and you felt from the start that like Marty was pretty receptive to what you were coming to the table with. In terms of the design of even the logo, is that your responsibility?
No, that wasn't mine. Marty already had the logo, the colour palette. I mean, he always, again, knew it wanted to be exactly how he wanted it to be. We were on the comm side of things, so we did the tone of voice. We then did the, you know, the social media strategy or the content strategy for the brand, which again was, you know, so much fun. But in terms of that receptive, I mean, I always say this in this industry, there's believers and there's non-believers. And there's people who believe in doing it a certain way or investing the money into these kind of strategies. A lot of people, you know, they're like, oh, getting another strategy and what's the actual tangible thing that I get from this, etc. The believers and the non-believers. And it was definitely, Marty was always like, let's do it. Like, let's do that. And almost like the bolder it was or the more out there the copy was, he was like, fuck yeah, awesome, let's go for it. Like, am I allowed to swear in?
Yeah. Like, do you remember like, one of my first profile photos? I just said, let's just do the back of my head.
Yes.
Because all the agents were looking down the camera. I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
We'll literally just shoot the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I rolled with that for a little while.
We were going to bring that back. We were going to bring that back.
Yeah, it was like it was pretty fun.
Doing these things, and Marty being a big believer in that they're, in the investment or the use of it or what it's going to bring off the back of it. I mean, brand awareness gets thrown out so much in our industry, and it is important. It's kind of hard to get the ROI on that or what it is, but it's just out there. But Marty was always a big believer in, let's do this. People are going to see it. The reach is going to be amazing on the White Fox page, your personal page. Both those pages were growing exponentially, really quickly, in a time where, social was changing a lot. But the growth of those pages and just being able to do whatever we wanted to do, but it was always in line with what the tone of voice was and what the content strategy was. And I think you've always said that those two pillars have really held fast for the brand and you stuck to them. Because the other thing as well is that I see a lot is, we do this, people will do it for the first month, and then it becomes a bit hard, or they're not seeing the results immediately.
We're 8 years of consistency.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
And the other thing is people always go, how can you... The confusing thing with White Fox has been that we've been able to be loud but not tacky. And that's back to a sentence that you've drilled into my head, which is show, don't tell. Show what you're doing. You don't have to tell what you're doing. And we've been very good at showing people the journey, showing people the success of the team, and it being organic and real, but with that polished and matter-of-fact communication style.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a bit to be said for, again, the influence in what we put out there in video content. I think we were putting out videos that show that not everything sells under the hammer, or, explaining how a vendor feels after a transaction. That wasn't normal to do.
Yeah, I remember back in the early days doing the social for the page, and there was a lot of that where, it's not all, what's the saying? Roses sunshine and roses. Yeah. It's not all that. And I think that was a really, again, a key differentiator in the content that was being created. It was like, it's very easy to say this property sold for so much over reserve and how good are we, and come, give us a listing.
Always great, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's easy, but it's hard to be like, this property didn't sell, but the auction was amazing. There was competitive bidding. We're going to get there in the end. Like, how good's negotiating straight away, and we will get the result. Like that, no one was doing that.
No one was talking about their passing.
Correct.
No.
Correct. Because it was probably deemed as not a success or something like that. And I think that early on was very prevalent in terms of like being open to, showing the what it is really like in the business.
So it's clear this could be a 2-part podcast. We're not even halfway through. So let's talk about the early impact then. So now we've done it. We've got the tone of voice. He's given it to you. You've accepted it. And now you're putting White Fox out there. What was the sort of immediate feedback? Because I know we can talk about the pushback. We know that people push back on like having their first photo be black and white. Some people weren't sure of no print on, and the irreverence of the brand.
No, the biggest thing was the deal.
Yeah. It still can be in a way for some people.
The deal was the biggest thing. There was a time in even 2018, you and I were eating a schnitzel sandwich across the road, and we were just mates catching up, and there was cars going past us where people were yelling out the window, "The deal!
Marty, the deal!
Marty, the deal!" Like, that was big.
Yeah.
But that was happening exponentially behind the scenes through social media. So people were just associating White Fox and me with the deal, which I loved. And, we've got a trademark, we own it, it is us.
Yep.
And now we get to choose where we use it and where we don't use it. But it was the tone of voice more than anything, because it's the words that carry weight. It's the words that create personality. It's not the look, it's the words. So we were making people feel a particular way based on that tone of voice. And so much of it was through even obvious. I know that people see the word obvious and they think of White Fox because we've used it in such unique ways across our branding.
Yeah, I mean, we're creating emotional connection. I mean, and that's the words are so powerful. It's what I love doing.
Yeah.
People say, what niche do we work in? Do you have a niche? And I go, our niche is storytelling.
Yeah.
But words are powerful.
Exactly.
That's why, you need to talk to your kids a particular way, your life partner a particular way. Why is your brand any different?
Yeah.
You need to speak about your brand to the marketplace with the same finesse and delicacy that it would be with a loved one. And if you have that, the emotional connection is built with your customer.
Yeah. And then the end result is brand. You've got a brand.
But that's exactly what I was going to say is if you actually look at the real estate marketplace and partly why your company had never really worked, and I don't think before, is there aren't many, if any, other than White Fox real estate brands that are a brand, I think. As in, you look at these other traditional agencies and you go, they're fantastic at what they do, selling real estate. But in terms of understanding their brand, I just see a logo and go, I know that's who they
But
are.
can I tell you why that is? That's because they started in real estate. Most real estate agencies, they've all started in real estate and their focus is listing and selling properties. And then through years and years and years and decades of that occurring, they now become a household name.
Yes.
And they're a brand.
Yes.
So they've earned the right to be a brand based on what they've done over a prolonged period of time. In White Fox's journey, it was about establishing brand as paramount and doing the deals. So building a brand has been more prominent and focused for me than actually doing the deals. The deals have all come. We've transacted now billions in property. It's not a small feat. Billions in sales. But the focus was on brand. I believe that we're the only real estate agency whose focus has been brand, not sales from day dot.
100%. Okay, so we're now established. We're moving along. So when did, firstly, what was Willow and Blake saying? Were they looking and going, wow, this is actually pretty cool? Like, what was the feedback?
When it was sort of coming to fruition, it was, it was. And, then the Marty getting excited by it. Anytime you've got a client who loves an idea and he's going to be like, I'm going to nail this and, you've done a great job. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Like the vibes are super high.
Sure.
I think you were in that time, you were in a non-compete or something had happened where you'd left your previous job and you had to wait. We had to wait until February the next year or something to launch. So in that time, Marty and I caught up nearly every day at the aforementioned Top Paddock, and we would chat. What we're going to do. The collateral, the content, the copy, just working on everything. And we finally got to the point where we wanted to start posting social. We started posting on social November before launch. So I think launch was 1st of February 2017. We started posting on social 3 months beforehand to sort of start to build. Start to see the difference in this brand. And, we were posting, we had no properties. There was no properties to promote or anything like that. So that's when we started with
This is Who is Marty Fox?
Exactly. It was, we started to post beautiful period architecture, the cars, building that this is more than just a real estate company, but it was a lifestyle company. And it was very different to what everyone else was posting. So we started doing that 3 months beforehand. And in that time, the money, there was, we needed to go onto a retainer, traditional retainer in the agency. And Marty was like, "Can we do a project fee at the end or something like that?" And then,
of course,
there was, and I was always like, "Sure." Like I was like, and I spoke to the team, and I was like, this is a winner. Like we're on a winner here. Like we need to work with this brand." But for whatever happened, that wasn't possible. So I started moonlighting on the side and working on the social strategy and working on the posting.
So they think you were crazy. They're like, you can't do this. You can't.
No, I think it was just sort of, it was a business decision that they made. Yeah. And I respect that for whatever reason. But I was like, Marty and I were vibing and I was like, we're going to keep working together. So we did. And we started working on the social media and posting that. And that's probably for a good 2 years there. And then eventually I left Willow and Blake to start my own agency with Marty's support and guidance and belief.
Just quickly, before we duck into that, I want to quickly touch on the infamous sales boards or the sold boards. Because again, at this point, a sold board was merely either a sticker on the board or just sold or whatever. Tell us about the idea to go, hey, why don't we put something up there that's irreverent and a bit, out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, in the application examples, when we're doing the creative strategy for the tone of voice, we wrote some copy. We're just trying to get the copy through, get the idea through. And Marty was like, I don't want to do just a sticker on the board. It's like, these are billboards, and people need to see these, and this is opportunity for people to be, have a connection with the brand or see how different we are. And we just started. So we put some examples in that, and I think that this is a funny story because the first one, when I write my example creative, it's internal facing, it's helping to see the idea. I wrote, I wrote, the Hathaways weren't thinking of selling. Now this board's here and they're in the Bahamas. And that was just like an example. So Marty,
of what you
could do. Well, the first board is that. Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, I love that.
That's the first board that actually went up, that ever went up. And I people go, have you bought and sold, Aidan? And I was like, no. But that was the very first one. Yes. And then it went on to be.
And then there was, some of these boards have actually then opened doors.
Yes.
For instance, when Gurner talked about, the smashed avocado and, Gen Y's not being able to afford anything because they're spending, $17 on smashed avocado. We put up...
I wrote, Heath and Rossi have been eating smashed avocado since 2017 and they just bought this property. It was, and you're right.
And then Gurner sees this board and then all of a sudden there's...
That's the cleverness, the connection to pop culture or things that are going on. Yeah. Catches people's eyes straight away. The Porque Los Dos or whatever it is.
Yeah,
why not have both?
There was the
when Melbourne lost in the finals.
Yeah, there was one that was like Lisa Wilkinson could have moved here because we get you the price that you want. When she was leaving, 9 to go to 10.
That's right.
They had a really great mix of, like you're saying, pop references that are happening at the time. Whatever the deal, whatever had transpired in the deal.
But then when we saw all the copycat agencies pulling out boards that just weren't written correctly, we were like, all right, we're going to start toning these back a bit because it diluted the whole magic of what those boards
Well, we wrote
represented.
At least 400 of those
easily.
Boards. Everyone different. Yeah. Everyone tailored to that transaction or what was happening.
One about
at the
Oprah
time.
As well.
Yeah, there was my favourite one is still, I think it was the first property that Marty and WHITEFOX were taking to market in Toorak, and he's like, this wasn't even a sold board, this was a for sale board.
Right.
And then Marty was like, we've got to put something up. It can't just be the standard board with the photo and things like that. He's like, we've got to put some copy on this board and just get it up. And I wrote 3 bed, 3 bath, 2 tractor. And that was the massive board on Orong Road. And that's still one of my favourite ones because it's just you get it. It shows the brand. It has personality. It gets it. It understands its audience really well.
In a traditional suburb too, where they would never have done that.
Correct. And Marty would always be saying, he'd be like, it's so traditional here. Like, why can't we inject some personality? Or why can't we, say this? Because everyone was telling him, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you can't do that. You can't do that in Toorak. Yeah. You can't do that here. Yeah. And that only, I think, drove you to be like, we can, and we're going to, and we did. So, that was amazing. But those boards are, they were always
folklore.
Always a fun part of
it. Is folklore.
It is. It's like, but if you live in Melbourne, if you live in Melbourne, those boards, and people around Australia might, in other states listening, might go, "What's that?" But look them up. I mean, we've sort of had a lot of fun over the journey with them, and it's certainly established the brand in this market in particular, and has now allowed you to grow across Australia and internationally. So, okay. It's time to do your own thing. You're working with this out there client, who's just a mile a minute. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. Tell me about how you sort of, because I remember following Marty at the time because I'd met him before he'd started the brand, and there was you posted a lot about you two going out doing this and then starting the thing at Hawkesburn in the Hawkesburn office as well. So tell us about the sort of genesis of that.
Yeah, well, so 2018. 2018, I left Willow and Blake because I was like, I want to start my own thing. I want to do this.
Which is pretty bold because you've only been doing it in Will and Blake for.
Yeah, I was only at Will and Blake for 2 years. So
Yeah.
I'd been writing for like maybe 6-7 years before, in total. So, and Marty was always very much like, you got to, doing your own thing. It's going to be yours. You could become a partner, at that business, but it's never going to be yours like that. And I was always gravitated towards, building my own business, building my own team and establishing really good culture. It was always about, agency has gone through a torrid time of like, it used to be awful, probably still is in some places. The hours, the expectations of junior staff, never been off, constantly always working around the clock to deliver. For me, it was always about taking the good things out of all the places that I knew of or had friends who worked at or Will on Blake and things like that. And, bringing that into my own place. So when I say my own place, it was just me. I was essentially a freelancer, but had White Fox as a client, which was obviously amazing because I had that sort of confidence to know that I would be able to pay my rent and my car and food. So that was amazing. And then, just drum up a few different clients from that. So, people liked the way that I wrote. I did some early campaigns for the Australian Open series for some of the AFL membership things through just the network that I'd created over the time. And then did that for a year. And then Marty...
So what were you called at this point? Did you have a company?
Yeah, well, I was called Alphabet City. That's what I always call myself. So
Such a good name.
Which we're just bringing it... Don't steal that because we're bringing out a stationery brand called that. Which, that's what I referred to myself as and worked with Marty. And I think it got to probably halfway through that year and we were having a coffee in the Hawkesburn Village, and I think Marty was like, what, we should do something together. And I was like so stoked. I was like, amazing opportunity. And then I remember like a week later, he was like, maybe I went too soon on that. But then, another couple of months and things like that. And then by December of 2018, we established WHITEFOX Marketing, and building that brand and getting started with that. And that was just incredible, obviously.
What was the conversation around even the name itself? Because you're taking on the now real estate company name into the marketing company.
Yeah.
Like, what was the sort of...
Well, I mean...
The majority of the clients were coming through connections within real estate.
Yep.
And the vendors weren't real estate agencies. They were running various businesses across so many different industries.
Builders, mortgage brokers.
Well, this is where having White Fox as a brand was really smart and clever because it worked.
Exactly right. And you talk about brand, having that name in our business immediately gave it credibility. You had a feeling, you had a connection to a brand that was, mind you, White Fox Real Estate was probably 3 years old almost by that stage.
And what they liked is that, they could look at everything across White Fox Real Estate and be happy. The visual identity, the tone of voice, the social media, the video content on YouTube, everything that they saw, the collateral, they were really impressed with. So we just said, well, look, let's just do this for your brand.
Yeah.
And that was the pitch. It was so easy.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing in those meetings. It was like I was pitching, what brand is, tone of voice development, creating, communication strategies, how your brand's going to work and why you have to do this. And I had the greatest case study in the room with me. Like Marty was there and White Fox, and Marty was going,
it's how you sound.
Exactly. But he would be like, everything that Aidan is saying, we want to do together, I've done. And
it was a very dynamic pitch.
I can imagine.
Because our strike rate was incredibly successful.
So are you loving that? Because you're still on the tools. You're selling.
Well,
and listing,
I was
right?
listing and selling. I was flipping with Charlotte. I was, raising kids. But it was also a point in my life, and this is why I also do go back to where real estate agents feel a bit flat. I could have easily gone full-time marketer and wound up real estate. There's these moments. I bit my fucking lip again. There's these moments in your life where you feel uncertain about certain things.
Yeah.
Whether it be your friendship groups, whether it be your husband or wife, whether it be your business partner, whether it be your job. And this was a moment in my life, particularly 18, 19, where I'd wake up and I'd say to myself, I love White Fox, but is this me? Like, am I going to be a real estate agent my whole life? Am I going to walk into people's lounge rooms and pitch myself over and over and over again until the end of time? And WHITEFOX Marketing gave me this creative ability to remove myself from real estate for probably 20% of the week and do something different.
But something you love. You're a creative guy.
I loved
You
it.
had a market. You got marketing.
Well, I loved people and I loved pitching, but I needed diversity. And I was able to get that through teaming up with Aidan in this business, which we ran 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23 for 5 years as business partners. And what it actually did is it got me to fall back in love in time with what I was doing with White Fox because I didn't feel trapped. I felt that I had diversity and I felt that I had this creative outlet. So without White Fox Marketing, White Fox Real Estate may not be where it is today because it re-engaged that fire in me of sometimes you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Yeah.
And what I had was this incredible brand in White Fox Real Estate that White Fox Marketing allowed me to see clearly as my main thing.
So you go from, so it's Willow and Blake, then it's Alphabet City. Now you've started up White Fox Marketing. And then, of course, you move into the South Melbourne office, which you've just moved out of, ironically.
We originally went into, the first day was just me in your old office at 281 Coventry. So I was in there upstairs.
We office shared. We had real estate downstairs, marketing upstairs.
Correct.
That was a great point in time.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then, Marty's ability to pitch and to, his network and just establish relationships and bring them into the business. I mean, we'd only gone a couple of weeks, I think, before we had our first copywriter employed and then our second copywriter employed. And then we needed an account manager.
Did we have
18 staff at the peak.
18 staff.
And you're working with, give some of the names of the companies that were doing copy.
Boost Juice.
Oh, nowadays?
No, you were in that time.
In that time. So we did.
We had 140 clients.
Yeah.
Which was across tone of voice, social media, design, photography, videography. And do you know what's crazy? In COVID lockdown, those retainers really kept things going because people still had to post. Yes. People still had to be visible
present
in the market, present as a brand. So it was like we were making great money.
It saved it.
Yeah. Well, I remember when all that stuff started to happen, and it was like, people need to go down to X amount of salary, or you got to lay off people and things like that. And I was like, I remember this is my first sort of real business that I have with staff and things like that. And I thought, I failed. Like, this is a disaster, let everyone down. We're going to have to, just when it felt like the business was like, it was real and we were going somewhere. And then for that to happen, and Marty was very, we just got to stay the course. We keep working. We'll figure it out. We'll do this. We give it 3 months of just see where we're at, and then we can come together. And through the whole thing of people having to move to digital offerings or, keep showing that their businesses are operating and things like that, it actually, it went up during that time. And we, the employment went up. That's probably towards halfway through the lockdown or towards the end of lockdown, halfway through that COVID year. I think that's when we sort of peaked at like 18 people. We're doing a lot of video, full production team in there, editors, videographers, copywriters, designers, account managers. So it was
humming.
It was going massively. So, but yeah, again, it's sort of like there's just in agency, there's just ups and downs and things like that.
But it's business, but it's not just agency. There's constant ups and downs, and you're just navigating all the different times, and a lot of it's driven by what's out of your control.
Yeah, and then of course the growth of this business, the growth of White Fox Real Estate, meant that it probably was the right time last year as the business grew and you started to build a HQ.
Well, what was happening, it was that money was coming into White Fox Marketing, but my time invested in White Fox Marketing was probably going down towards sort of 10-15%. And as a great mate, I was like, hey, it's probably time that you buy me out, because at the end of the day, why are we taking something as 50-50 partners when, you know what, I'm on the back burner because White Fox Real Estate's really going through a growth phase.
Yes.
And you can do it. You know, there's no reason why you can't. You know, there's enough brands now to leverage in a pitch. There's enough credibility behind the scenes. There's enough great stories to tell to be able to onboard. Every business is based off sales. You know, you have to be able to sell yourself. There was enough there to be able to do it. Yeah.
This is a great case study though for anyone out there listening who has a business as things are changing, regardless of whether it's creative or whatever it is. For you now, you're going okay. So a foundation, the foundation client is going to move. We've got their name. How do we talk us through your mindset, that process? How do you now go on and change? And
well, the biggest thing was do you still call it WhiteFox Marketing or do you rebrand?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was we've been discussing for a while before we even did the split of does this brand need to sort of form its own identity? Because there was always people who thought we only did the marketing for White Fox.
Yes,
there was then other people who thought, do they only work in real estate?
Yes.
Because
that were the two big objections.
Yeah, we've got exactly right. So there was, whilst we had obviously incredible brand, we had the clients, we had incredible staff. It was sort of like, are we missing a whole section of the market who just aren't even inquiring for services because of that? And we've been discussing that for ages, and there was always going to be potentially a rebrand, and sort of as this business is growing, does it have enough now to stand on its own two legs? And then when we got to the point where Marty was like, I'm focusing, real estate's fine, I'm focusing on that team has grown crazy. I've seen it from when it was the first 4 people in the business to, over 50 now, whatever it may be. Focusing his attention on that and building that. And, we got to the point where Marty, like he said, is, you got this. You can do it. And that belief still, in me then to what it was, 6, 7 years, 8 years prior, was still there. And it was like, do that. So, but at the same time, it's not a new business. No. We refreshed it. So, same team, still same clients, which were amazing because they all, stayed on and kept working. I've always said, a lot changed, but not much changed, But, that, and then the name itself. So, the Fox from White Fox and Marty, the legacy of that brand remains within the new name, and Hat is the first 3 letters of my last name. So put them together and we got FOXHAT.
It actually works perfectly.
It's great.
And it's that little joke of
I love it.
Wear the FOXHAT.
Exactly. So it's, and it works great. And the feedback on that has been amazing. We did that.
It pays homage to how it
exactly right. Exactly right.
Hat.
And it's that's been probably about 7-8 months now. 7 months of doing that, and it's been amazing.
Did you think this was would be where we'd be at? I mean, after sitting in that first meeting, and particularly for you, because you know what he's like, and I imagine over the journey it wasn't always. There's butting heads because that's what happens in business as you come up with ideas, particularly ideation of content and creative forms. And when you're dealing with someone who's created themselves, that's always a challenge. But if you look at it now, you must look back with a sense of pride because you're a huge part of the feel of this business.
Yeah,
you know?
I will.
The fabric of it.
Yeah, I will always look. I care for it probably more than most people. I'm still very. I feel like a bit of a custodian of it. Yeah. Like I still have so much connection to it, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done. Like in terms of working on this brand, its success to play a tiny role in that. And to see where it is and the expansion. You're in New Zealand now. There's offices opening up all around. It's like it's honestly the best, and it's why I do what I do. It's like I love. Across your brand, Marty, to every other brand that we work on, I care for it so much, and all I want is for it to succeed. Like that's what I'm here for. I'm here to articulate people's visions and dreams and help them achieve it. And, when it works like this and it goes like that, it's a pretty bloody good feeling.
I think you're bigger than a tiny part. I mean, for you as well, the fortune of walking into, having a connection to Willow and Blake and then finding him who was willing to do it in his own time, because it could have gone very differently. They might have said, look, hey, great idea, come back to us. Like you sometimes do with people.
I know.
You say to people, hey, you're a great agent, speak to me in a year.
Look, the best thing is it's been positive on so many fronts. I've gained, a best mate from it. I've gained amazing memories in a different sector. I've got an incredible brand that's unreplicable in White Fox. And, you know, you talk about the butting heads. We actually never had an argument. You know, like we didn't agree on certain things, but there was so much respect for one another that it was always preserved in a way that the friendship was always paramount over the business. And
which is good. A testament to the fact that we're here today, by the way, because there's plenty of breakups of businesses that wouldn't be doing a podcast.
It's proof that you can break up a business and still be best mates.
Yeah, it's true. No, that's good. A testament to both
and it's
of you.
also something that I'm proud of because, you know, people may perceive, you know, me as someone that's extremely, you know, hard-lined on certain things. But, you know, as I've matured in business, the reason why there is still a friendship is because had we done this in my early 20s, maybe we wouldn't be. So I'm very proud just from a personal development perspective that we've been able to maintain such a good friendship in an exit when there's so much on the line. You know, we're talking about a business, you know, we're turning over great money and there's a lot of moving parts to it. But at the end of the day, there's some things that just don't have a value associated with it. And for me, particularly in this scenario, that was a friendship. And I'm very proud of everything that has transpired. And, you know, it's just a great yarn. It's a great story.
Every time we catch
it's very
up,
organic.
Every time we catch up, we are in stitches. Just talking about stuff that's happened. We were just, before we started filming, we were talking about something and we were laughing our asses off. And I think that's...
And it's shit that can't go on podcasts.
Exactly.
Well, I believe the comment was you went out for dinner the other night and you made everyone else's experience bad because you guys were the loudest table.
We apologise to the diners at that restaurant last week.
Rena's in Armidale.
Have us back.
If you haven't been, you've got to go for a fee.
But it's, I mean, I think that's... I mean, I look back on so much just fondly of, like, you know, we always used to say...
The
like,
Sydney trips
where the thumb was... We were taking a photo and it was just... We look back on the things and I think that's what, you know, made... you know, it made business fun for me. It was like, you know, I was such a new path that I was navigating in terms of staff and... you know, it is a serious business, but we just had so much fun, and I think that's what's made it. You know, all the pressure, all the stress, makes it all worthwhile because, at the end of the day, we're having fun.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to have some of your clients on this podcast.
Yes.
In fact, in the next few episodes as well.
Fantastic.
So we'll talk about your influence on those as
Marty,
well.
just extract a little bit more.
Just make it pay a bit more. Well, Aidan Hathaway, it's just so good to have you on. You are an integral part of this brand, even though you're no longer in it. It's certain about that, and the story is great. The story is great because you went from naval engineering, which is architecture, I should say, into creative field, and you're a genius in that aspect. Having worked with you, so thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it.
It's always fun, and this is with the Fox. Remember, you can grab this at any podcasting outlet that you go to, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music and whatnot. And we'll do another one soon. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming in.
Marty,
Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Twice in 1 week.
I know. Lucky me.